Hello. So today we're joined by Natasha Bradley from Empower M365, one of our good friends here at Curo, and we're here to chat all about Copilot for M365. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries. Very excited to be here.
Yeah, I know those sleeves, power in it through.
That's because if you like throw me under the bus, I might just sort of fly away.
The more you stroke them, the bigger we'll get. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Copilot for M365. So I mean, we're hearing this absolutely everywhere right now, aren't we? I mean, you can't go anywhere without hearing about Copilot, ChatGPT, various different AI tools that can help us. So let's start right from the beginning. How would you describe Copilot for M365, and why would it be relevant to me or to anyone else who's seeing and hearing about it at the moment?
Yeah. So if I just take like a little bit of step back, so if you think about organisations, no matter what sector they're in, they've all got challenges, and those challenges, some are budgets are being reduced, cost savings are having to be made, approximately 30%. We've got staff shortages, so we have to do more with less. And the
Yeah.
only way that we're going to be able to do that is embrace technology. And surprise, surprise, Sarah, one of those technologies is Microsoft Copilot. So you ask, what is it? So if you think about it as your personal intern, so someone that you can rely on, carry out mundane tasks, simpler and quicker. So for example, being able to get reports out quicker, so matters of minutes instead of days. I've used it to plan a trip to Barcelona, for instance, and just being able to get it really quick information on what I like to do is phenomenal. So embracing it will drive productivity, efficiencies, but more importantly, work-life balance, because you won't be pushed to work to deadlines because you're going to have that extra pair of hands to help you. So it's
Yeah.
all about supporting you and in driving your outcomes quicker and faster.
Yeah, and I think, when you say embracing it, I think that's key, isn't it? I mean, even myself, I think, we've all sat there at some point when this AI journey was here, and all of a sudden it's gone from being everyone's talking about AI to boom, it's here, and everyone's now using it daily, probably more than they should be. AI policy, let's talk about that again in a bit. We'll come back to that. But you know, what changed all of a sudden? How is that? So, embracing it is key now. We've gone from don't worry everyone, it won't come in, it won't take our jobs, it won't do this, to now right everyone, now we must embrace it. And how, what's the easiest way for people to do that?
So I think from an embracing perspective, so when we say embrace it, we have no choice. So,
Yeah.
from a personal perspective, it's now sitting in WhatsApp. So you're like, oh my God, there's AI in WhatsApp. But from a Copilot 365 perspective, from embracing it, it's just having a look to see at, what mundane tasks do you do that you do over and over again, and looking at to see if Copilot can map that to automation, for instance. So things like checking your to-do list on a daily basis. Look at you log on during the day, in the morning. Yeah, you start looking for your to-do list. You start checking your emails. What I've got to do, what actions, what teams. It takes all time. Where Copilot can be that intern and provide you with that information. So it's small steps, and those small steps will lead to big values. And I always say, change doesn't have to be large to deliver big value.
Yeah, small things. I know it's saved me absolute, like just creating the to-do lists, and since I've obviously been chatting with yourself and we've been involved with yourself, I'm now finding myself using it a lot more, obviously in to the AI policy. But yeah, it's those small little things that you had no idea
Small
took you
things.
so long. Took
So,
you.
prime example, I've been working with a training provider, and we've mapped out their end-to-end process for tender responses, because they were finding that they were getting multiple tenders during the same time in the same day and having to choose which one to go for when they should be going for all of them, but they just haven't got the
Yeah,
resource to do that. So within 15 minutes of me demoing it to them, they could complete their qualification template. They could complete all the mundane forms in that tender, i.e., all the security questions, the name, the VAT, etc., etc. but more importantly, they could create a first draft response. And it was mind blowing. And then what they did is we created a prompt then to mark their first draft versus the scoring metrics, and then it gave them improvements. Well, they don't have to worry anymore about which one do they go for. They can go for
Yeah.
3, they can go for 5, because they can get to first draft within 15-20 minutes of having the documents within 365. It's not now days and out, days and days of time. So for them, just improving that one small process, it saved
Yeah.
them maximum time, but also gave them the ability to actually bid for more tenders.
Yeah, and I think that this, from any industry, I suppose, is that what industries are you really seeing this in, like, embracing of it in? I know I come from a recruitment background. I mean, that's grown into more relationship management, customer success, etc. But that, when I think back to have it, if I'd have had this tool in my role 10 years ago, we could have been absolutely flying. So that's an
Uh,
industry I do think that we could really see some serious value being made in.
Honestly, it doesn't really come down to industry, because there's use cases in all industries, because we all do
Yeah.
mundane tasks. So, I've just spoke about the tender process, but that could be bidding for funding for public sectors. It could be we're just about to start back with the charity, and they're rolled out to the whole of their user estate. They're only small, but they're going all together.
Yeah.
So these different sectors are all going because they need, going back to my point at the beginning, they all need to reduce costs. They've all got staff shortages and they've got budget constraints. And this is the way that they see to automate tasks to be able to stand still, but delivering the same and trying to get more value out of what they've got.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer in that respect, isn't it?
It's absolutely a no-brainer.
Yeah.
There was a use case I came across, and honestly, it melted my heart, because it was in the NHS. It was a clinician, a paediatrician. So he was seeing a young boy who has got quite bad asthma, and he'd been into hospital quite a few times because he just wasn't taking his inhaler correctly. So when the paediatrician spoke to the little boy about, the importance, he said to him, "So what's your favourite cartoon?" And the little boy said, "Well, mine's is Winnie the Pooh." So what the paediatrician did is took the NHS asthma leaflet, uploaded it into Copilot chat, and then asked it to write a story using the Winnie the Pooh theme. And it created this story. So amazing. Then the little boy said, "But my grandma reads me my bedtime story, and she's Hindu." So he then translated it into Hindu. So the little boy left the paediatrician's office with a story about how Winnie the Pooh has to have his inhaler every night in Hindu. I mean,
Genius.
genius. And
Yes.
from a technical frontline staff, it's only that person or that creator could come up with that use case. But that is such a powerful use case.
Yeah, really. Especially, I mean, in that medical side of things as well, where you've got tight budgets, NHS teaching, all those sort of lesson plans, I'm presuming, things like that. Those that where those roles have required you to work those extra hours to make sure you meet the admin side of things must be revolutionary for that stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you've seen, so NHS England have just enabled the whole of the NHS to have Copilot chat, so the free version. So that story that I just told was created by the free version within the 365 environment. So that sort of thing can be used. I had a little bit of a demo with Manesh Mystery from Microsoft, and he created a prompt to create a training plan plus quiz using the free version of Copilot. So there's lots of use cases that can be created and are really valuable,
Yeah.
that have been being used from the free version of Copilot, but it is secure because it's within your 365 tenant.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I was going to say, what is there around that people can use right now that isn't going to cost, all the rollout budget, etc., but they can actually start to use it and see a change and make a difference? What is it that there's people can start doing
Yeah.
now?
So every M365 user will have access to what they call Microsoft Copilot chat, and that is the free version of Copilot. So it's not looking at your data within your 365 tenant, it is looking out into the internet. But the one thing that's different to the free version of ChatGPT, for instance, is that it has enterprise data protection. And that means that your data, everything that you upload is secure within your data, within your tenant. It's not going out into the internet. It's not being trained by models, unlike the free version of ChatGPT. So
Yeah.
the way that users can make sure that they're, in this secure environment is in the right-hand corner when they go into copilot.com and log in as their credentials of their email, because that's what they have to do, so their work credentials. They will see a green tick, and that green tick it ensures them that they're protected by enterprise data protection. So they can do the Winnie the Pooh story. They can create documents, so they can create a lot of information and be a lot of value without having to actually spend any more money than what they're already spending within their M365 environment. But they're also know that they are protected. So win-win scenario.
Yeah. And then I suppose ChatGPT versus Copilot, that's a big plus. What is there any other, if we're looking at ChatGPT, it's like Liverpool Man United, isn't it, I suppose? ChatGPT versus...
I can tell you that.
Oh, okay. I'm a Man United fan, but we won't talk about that. Bad. However, yeah, so in that scenario, that's a plus for businesses, that, the protection of data, and the fact that it's not going out to the internet, like you say. Is there any other things that are a real big difference?
Yeah, so I get this question all the time,
Right.
ChatGPT versus Copilot, ChatGPT is better, and et cetera, et cetera. So my first sort of statement to people is, it's two different tools. It's like saying you're using Amazon and you're using Azure. It's Google versus 365. It's two different tools, and it's whatever the right tool for the job is the right answer. So
Yeah.
for instance, ChatGPT is about building personal efficiencies, so it can assist you and only you. Where Copilot is driving efficiencies that will benefit you, but also your wider team and organization. ChatGPT will use your data to train the model. So the data you're putting into ChatGPT will be used. So that's why a lot of organizations' policy will say ChatGPT you can use, but only for public domain information.
Yeah.
Copilot now. So there's lots of different things, and it's just what tool's right for you, what information, and that comes down to upskilling, but also the policy. The policy is really the first thing that has to be created. But we've seen policies created that don't
In
actually work.
ChatGPT.
Work for the user, so it looks good, and you're
Yeah.
like, oh, that's good. But then it's too rigid, so it has to be. The policy has to protect the organisation, but also let the users be creative, because Copilot is all, I like to call it, a playground. It's somewhere to play. It's not another tech rollout. It's fundamentally changing the way that we work. So we
Yeah.
have to create areas where people can play and try things out, because that's how we're going to drive adoption and efficiencies.
And they can do it safely at the same time
And
within that.
because
Yeah.
it's your own
And
environment. You think about it from a 365 perspective, you're secure.
yeah.
When Copilot comes on, it's the same security elements as you had, because you're in your 365 environment.
Yeah. And then you touched out AI policy again, like hearing this with every customer we're speaking to, in our own business, oh, can I do this? I've just put this into here? And it's like, okay, right, you need to read the policy. This is going to be, you're thinking about it, policies are they are a rigid thing, aren't they? But I can't see this is going to have to be fluid, isn't it? Over the next, however
Yeah,
many
so
years.
it has to be fluid. Things are changing on a daily basis, but also the way that we're rolling out AI is, apart from some organisations, but most organisations are doing it in a phased approach. So which means from a user perspective, you may have some users signing it 6 months earlier than someone else. So that policy could be different in that space of time. So you have to keep an eye on not only the policy, is it right for the time and right for your users and your organisation. You have to keep an eye on who signed it, when they signed it, to make sure that everyone's signing the relevant document. So when we talk about policy and where to begin, we sort of point people to the ISO 42001, And in that sort of control appendix, I think it's A and B, there's a list there of what should be in a good policy. So if you haven't started, that's a really good place to look, because it does give you the headings of what should be in a policy, and that will start you off. But use Copilot to monitor and monitor the dates people are signing it, and to really get them to sign every 6 months. But from a review date, we're looking every sort of 4 to 6 months to make sure that the policy is still up to date and relevant for the organisation.
Yeah, that's really useful information. We've just had exactly that same conversation in our internal meetings, and I think it's important to recognise that it is going to be a changing landscape for a long time, I think, isn't it?
A long time. Yeah.
So what's the absolute key, what is the best success for a rollout? What are the key ingredients that need to be for a successful rollout, would you say?
So I think from a successful rollout, and this is like a quite a tricky question, because it depends on the it depends, not a politician or anything, but it depends. So it depends on, so if we, Empower M365 is all around people, user adoption and governance, but at the same time, the organisation has to ensure that their data is actually stored within 365. If it's not, Copilot for 365 will not find that information. So that has to be in a good state, and all the information needs to be in there to be able to find it. You also then need to start communicating to your users, because, where do you store a document as a user that you want to find? In my OneDrive. So there was one, and I won't name the company, but there was one company rolled out Copilot, and the users started to use it and found someone's divorce papers, for instance. Now, so from a communication perspective, we always say, you need to make sure that your users know that Copilot is going to be rolled out, because if there's any personal information on their OneDrive or on their device, they need to get it off. Otherwise, it's at risk of being found. So it's just getting lists. So once all that's in place, your data and everything's in place, then what we would start to do is work in small groups, and really just to understand what processes can be changed, because how can we change something if we don't know what we're changing? We said earlier, it's not a technology rollout. So the normal things apply when you're doing an adoption program, the norm, comms, upskilling, the change impact assessment, etc., etc. But we really need to understand what change we're trying to implement here, because it's so large. Yeah. So we recommend to start on small processes. So what processes, like the tender process, what tender will deliver maximum maximum output and deliver impact? Because there's nothing better than users seeing what it can do. Once they understand what it can do, that's when they start going, oh, they start
believing in it. They start buying into it, don't they?
Start buying into it, and create like a little bit of a playground. And that small group could be your champions network if you've got one, or just go from department to department. But it could be, around a small sort of playground that I mentioned before. It's just being able to create areas where we can sort of play, test data if you want to. So just to drive that, once we start getting that curiosity in that small group, we understand what we're trying to change, then what we would do is then talk about Copilot briefing and Copilot prompting, and just getting them used to how to communicate with the platform. So that builds up confidence. Then what we would do is then work with them to map Copilot to their process, and then we would then upskill and embed that to that, so they can start using it on a daily basis, because confidence will come as they use it.
Yeah. So you got any examples of that? Have you worked with any people who, not much resistance, but there's that skepticism, isn't there, around bringing something like this in, around your team, how they're going to potentially accept it. Then you've got, how am I going to be able to embrace it as a leader? But have you got any kind of examples of where you've been able to do that?
We were working for like an underwriter, doing some work for an underwriter. So they got a P&I club, and so they have a mixture of lawyers and solicitors and things like that. And their sort of view on it was, well, we're the expert. That's not going to take that. I've trained all these years. I'm not going to be the expert. But when they understood that it could take 250-page contracts and then give it a summary, the penny started to drop because they were like, what? So I don't have to read all this anymore. I can do X, Y, Z. So at the start, they were very skeptical because they were the expert. They've trained for 7 years. They've, this AI is not any good. It's not secure. But once we got them through that, and they could see the benefit, and that's seen as believing. I know that's a bit of a saying, but it's true. Once they see it,
Yeah.
then that's the sort of scenario. But the same as the tender process. One of the guys who's going to be doing it is a really big fan of ChatGPT. So he was like, well, why can't I use ChatGPT? And then as we, especially when we showed him how quickly it could do the first draft, he realised that actually ChatGPT couldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't access to the 365 tenant, all the information. So we're asking, in that scenario, we're asking Copilot to look at the information of their one folders, so all their tenders have won, and pull the information, answer the question from there. So we're used to people being skeptical because people like to think that they're experts. And let's be honest, Sarah, like, when people think they're experts, that's their sort of, I'm professional, I'm in charge, I'm an expert. And if a system can sort of take that away and people can then build it, like, for example, one of my friends said to me, I can build a website within 5 minutes. I was like, get on Teams and show me. So they were like, right, what website do you want to build? So they were off. And they built this full-blown website in under 5 minutes. I was like, what the? So people who are in those sort of roles are going to be more like, what the heck? And instead of embracing it and going, well, actually, okay, that can take that bit of my job, but actually my job's not going to be taken by AI, it's just going to be redeveloped and I'm going to have a new role.
Yeah, it's the threatened. It's the classic, even, back in the day when if you were hiring, you wouldn't necessarily look at someone and think, oh, well, hang on, if I bring them in, this could be a threat to me. And it is simple people feelings, isn't it? It's people looking at it and being scared in a way.
Yeah.
Whereas actually, I was one of those people, probably not scared. It's probably more like, oh, well, well, they can't be human because I'm a human. So that's one thing I've got over you sort of thing. But as you embrace it, and I think you inspired me for a LinkedIn post where you said, it's not AI that's going to take your job. It's the people who are embracing it that are going to take your jobs. And I think that has really, really resonated with me, especially to look at how I can actually make it, I can add value to myself. And I think it's something that's going to be really exciting. But how do you see it evolving? How's this landscape going to evolve? Right now it's like, this is amazing, this is brilliant, it can't get any better than this. But how do you see this getting better?
Yeah, so what we have today is the worst it's going to be. So it'll get better. So I always say to people, it'll be what it'll be because we're in control. So if we decide enough's enough and we don't want to give it any more information, we don't want it to learn, we have to stop. And we need to know when to stop. Otherwise, it's out of hand. I think that we have to use it in the right way to make sure it's ethical and it's used in ethical because, as we've seen in the past or seen recently with some retails, it's not being used in the correct manner. So we have to make sure that rail guards are there and we know when to take the foot off the pedal and slow it down.
But that's difficult for us, isn't it, us humans? We're not very good at that.
No, especially from an AI perspective. From a Copilot 365 where it's all about work, improving productivity, etc. I think this is just the touch of the iceberg. I think, it's going to be a continuous business improvement. So Copilot is a continuous business improvement. Things are happening, changing daily, and we just need to decide as humans and as organisations what features that we take in our organisation, because there's that many coming, it's just going to be overwhelming for users. So we have to decide, are we going to upskill people on agents? Are we going to bring in memory? Are we going to bring in team prompts, etc., etc.? So we have to have that adoption plan in place and strategy that looks at the roadmap for Copilot and decide as an organisation which features are coming in so we don't overwhelm people.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was going to say. There's an empowerment and there's an overwhelm, isn't there? you know,
There is, yeah.
empowerment of and embrace this to feel empowered, but then it overwhelms. So if someone was going to take all of this and say, right, that's it, we're using it for everything now, you're not going to do one thing properly, are you? It's jack of all trades, master of none type thing. We're bashing out the older quips today, aren't we?
Where on it? Where on it?
Yeah.
Must be my sleeves.
Yeah, it is. It's giving me all the. It's almost 80s vibes, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
but yeah, so I think that's really important. So how would, if you could give some advice to someone just starting on their Copilot journey today, a small to medium-sized business probably, where we're looking, what would you say? What would you give as advice?
So I think I can split it from user to organisation. So from an organisation perspective, I would say make sure your policy is in place, and then keep a track on who's signing it when. So to make sure that the users are reviewing and signing the most relevant, up-to-date policy. I would then say that prompting is key to your users to make sure they understand how to communicate with Copilot, and that's because users can get turned off quite quickly. So
Yeah.
if they don't get the right answers, I mean, I did it when I first got it. It didn't give me the right answers, so I was like, I'm not playing with this anymore. This is not right.
Yeah.
So they have to have the upskill of prompting and understand how to communicate. So prime example, if I said to you, Sarah, summarize my emails, you'd be like looking at me blank, going, what emails, what date, who from, how do you want the output, etc., etc. So you've got to think that your intern, which is your Copilot, is going to be the same thing. And then the last one is to really create an area for them to learn, if that's a champion, but really just give them some space, because they have to play, because we're asking them to fundamentally change the way that they work, and they can't do that in a confined space. They have to have areas to be able to grow and develop. And then
Yeah.
from a user perspective, I'd say don't be scared. Just try it. Think of a process that you do, a mundane task that you do daily that you hate, and then talk to Copilot, as we just mentioned. Talk to them as though they are your 8-year-old, your 5-year-old, and tell exactly what you want, how you're going to do it, and then deliver the output. And then the third one is just really keep up to date with any LinkedIn Lives, videos, the Microsoft blogs, because things are changing on a daily basis. So you have to try and keep up to date somehow. So just really, those are sort of my top tips for organisations, but also users, because they're quite fundamentally different, but both important to drive that continuous business improvement.
Yeah. In fact, we did a webinar, didn't we, which is available if
Yeah.
anyone wants to check it out on our LinkedIn pages. So it's on Cura Services, and I believe it's on Empower 365's as well. But of course, as I know, you're always open to chat, answer any questions, and if anyone's got any advice. So please feel free to drop us an email in. We'll make sure you've got the link on the podcast episode. But if you want to drop us an email at podcast@curaservices.com, we can certainly speak to you, Tash, if that's all right. And we can advice.
You know how I chat.
Yeah, I know. I'm amazed. We're at 34 minutes, and yeah, we've covered some really good ground. But I think it's like you said, it's coming, it's here. Embrace now, and look at how we can empower our teams to, and people in business to really make a difference and see the value, as you say. But yeah, thank you very much for chatting all things Copilot M365 with us. And as always, please just get in touch with us for any questions and any other things you want to add, Tash.
No, all good for me, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Right.
Take
No
care.
worries. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.